Okay, I'm gonna get started. So welcome everybody. This is part of Career Weeks. And if you don't know who I am by now, I am Mr. Soderbeck. I am the guy who runs the College and Career Center here at Vista High School. And we're very pleased to have Sofia Seikaly from News 10 on here to talk about what it's like being a television news producer and maybe a little bit more about television production as well. I know we have a lot of students who are interested in this area, so I'm gonna let you take it away. Let me make sure that you are co-host here in case you have some slides or video or things like that that you would want to share.
Okay, I'll share my screen very quickly. Okay, can you all see my screen right now? Yes, give me a thumbs up. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna quickly play this. All right, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me this week. It's great to be with all of you. So my name is Sofia Seikaly. I'm a television news producer for ABC 10 News here in San Diego. So I wanted to give you some quick background about myself. So I was born and raised in San Diego. I went to high school at the Academy of Our Lady of Peace. I did a similar program to what I understand that you have at Vista High School. It was called Pilot Productions for our school, and it was a student run video production class, basically. And that's where I really got my start in having an interest in the TV/film industry. I went on to Chapman University and I graduated with 2 degrees in broadcast journalism and in Spanish. So getting into my professional journey, I'll start with my college years. That's really where I got a lot of hands-on work. So that's kind of the next step, I suppose, for those of you who are interested in joining this industry. So at my school at Chapman, there is a student-run news broadcast called Chapman News. And there the students do everything from everything on cam to behind the scenes. So you get to report, anchor, produce, everything in between, run the audio, run the cameras, everything. A big moment for us was being able to produce our own election show back in 2016. That was about a 3 to 4 hour broadcast. It was insane. And while I was there, we also created what was called the Chapman Sports Broadcast Network. That's similar to Chapman News. That's a 100% student-run sports broadcasting program. So some schools might have like ESPN put on, their D1 football, basketball games, but we had our students because we were a D3 school. So we were the ones broadcasting those games to our school campus. And my very first job, just to show you, it doesn't matter what is your first step in any industry or whatever your path is, it matters that you take the first step. So I was given the role of being a cable wrangler because I had no experience as a young, I think I was a sophomore at the time in college. And I'll show you a picture in a moment to give you kind of a before and after take of how far you can come in your journey. And then I eventually ended up becoming a sideline reporter for that Chapman Sports Broadcast Network. There we go. Here are just some couple of highlights I wanted to share with you. This was obviously, as you can see in the picture, Chapman News when I was in college. It's our team behind the anchor desk, and then myself on the right in front of the green screen doing an entertainment news segment. Next is election night. As I mentioned, a lot of people in that day. That took a lot of preparation, as you can see all of the notes in my hand. And then, as I mentioned a second ago, on the left, that's me as the cable wrangler extraordinaire. So what that person does is you are basically working with a camera operator on the field, and that cable is attached to the end of the camera. So you're basically making sure that that person has some slack and can move around on the field and get great shots of the players from that angle. And then worked my way up to doing a different job on the field and being a sideline reporter and being, having a bigger role in this broadcast. So I was very fortunate enough to have several different internships. One of the highlights for me that I'll share with you was interning in Los Angeles for NBC Nightly News for their nightly news program. And that they really threw me into the mix from day one. You were never just an intern. And that's really where I got my hands dirty on actual experience in the industry, in addition to my schoolwork. So You got to work in the field with different correspondents, producers, editors. You got to be in the edit phase and see how a piece that is put together for a network broadcast comes together. And I will share with you that I think internships really just involvement in any way you can, even if you don't get an internship. That's really key to giving you a lot of experience and also helping you find out what you do and don't like. My biggest advice is to just try everything. And here's a picture of me in front of the nightly news desk, getting to do some practice work in front of the camera. That was really cool. Okay, so postgrad, my very first job out of college was as a morning show producer in Eugene, Oregon. It's a couple hours south of Portland. So when I say morning show, I mean that I actually worked overnight. This is called the graveyard shift, as I learned when I got there. But this position, I should say, taught me a lot about producing. I eventually became the morning show reporter, and this position really gave me the skills that I needed to eventually move on to the position that I have now here in San Diego, back at home at ABC 10 News. And in Eugene, I found my passion for producing. And it, like I said, it helped lead me to where I am today. So I'm very grateful for that. A couple of highlights from Eugene. Like I said, I got to report. This was early in the morning, so that's why it seems so dark outside. And then on the right, this is one of my producing days inside. I took a picture inside the studio. Okay, so my first position here at ABC 10 News, I was an associate producer. So what that means is that you are a writer for the different broadcast shows. So you're assigned to do, or to write, I should say, different scripts that the anchors will eventually read on camera. And you can also fill in, produce on various shows if somebody is off on a particular day. I eventually was able to move up to being just a full-on producer. So I actually am responsible for a particular show on the weekends, like an 11 o'clock show. But I also do get to help out with some weekday shows right now. So that's really exciting to be part of the Monday through Friday mix. I also have done a couple of different ABC 10 News specials. We've got a franchise called Positively San Diego. So I got to produce this past holiday season, actually, a 30-minute broadcast strictly dedicated to that franchise, which highlights pretty much all kinds of feel-good stories of good people doing good things in our community. And I'll show you a clip of that at the end of this presentation. And as a producer, I'm also in charge of this weekly segment called Hometown Heroes that basically highlights different local service members in our area, which is pretty cool. All right, so I get this question a lot. So you're a producer. What does that mean? You know, being a producer can mean a lot of things depending on what you do. It can also vary from industry to industry. So for me personally, I am what's called a line producer. There's different kinds of producers. There's segment producers and other types, which I can talk about later on if you have more questions about that. But for me personally, I'm a line producer, so I am responsible for one specific newscast. So every producer has one particular show that they're in charge of. So like right now, for example, I'm helping out on the 4 o'clock show Monday through Friday. So that is my show. I'm responsible for choosing different content for the show. So I'm in charge of what stories actually go into a show. I help assign reporter stories. I pick different local and national content that are big stories of the day. Also help put together weather coverage as well. So once you do that, you basically decide what order their stories will go in the show. And then you add some production value elements to really kind of play up your broadcast and make it shine. So that's done through the use of different graphics or monitors in the studio. Where is the anchor going to be? Are they sitting at the desk, or are they going to be standing with a monitor with some cool video playing in it? Or what kind of camera shots are you going to be using? So you work with your team in the control room to really put that all together and execute it. But the bigger picture here is that you're the person running the show. Of course, you work with a team. There's an executive producer overseeing all of the shows, and you work with a lot of different folks to make it happen. One quick note I just want to share with you about journalism as a whole, no matter if it's broadcast, if it's digital. The goal of journalism is you provide important, accurate, and balanced information to viewers. Number one is you remain impartial. You present both sides of an issue and let viewers form their own opinion on a particular issue. As I mentioned, you cover local and national news. And fun fact, weather is probably the number one reason that people watch the news. No matter what kind of platform they're on, weather is so key, no matter where you are, even if you're in sunny San Diego. And I would say within the last year and a half or so, there's been a big shift actually to incorporating streaming services into how we do our jobs. So there's definitely been more of an emphasis on that. And I would just have that in mind as you all decide what you want to do in the future. I guess this is one of the industries that you're interested in getting into. Just keep that in mind, because there are jobs strictly in the streaming service area. So in the newsroom, collaboration and teamwork are the bread and butter of any newsroom. This happens on a daily basis. And like I was telling you a minute ago, it takes a village to put together one show. There are so many people who have their hands on different elements of it. From the producer actually overseeing the bigger picture of the show, to the anchors who are in front of the camera, reading, what you wrote, and really helping the coverage come together, from the writers who help you, get those scripts written, from the reporters putting together their story that's going to be in the show, to the photographers who are the ones out there shooting different live shots with reporters and are, in the elements getting these important stories back to you, to the editors. Without them, we would have no video. So they are also the unsung heroes of every broadcast. News never sleeps. It's a 24/7, 365, broadcast, basically. It's always happening and never stops. We'll share, there are 3 different day parts of any broadcast newsroom. So there's the morning team, which was what I did in Eugene, which I shared with you. And then there's what's called the dayside folks. Those are more traditional 9 to 5 or so schedule. And then there's the nightside folks who do the evening news. So that would be about 3 to 11:30 if you want to get into to the different shifts. Working in news, you are always on a deadline. You have to produce your newscast by showtime. So if I'm doing the 4 o'clock show, well, it has to be done by 4. You're always writing against the clock, basically. And reporters too, they have to make their slot. So their story is going to be at a particular time in a show. They have to make sure that it's done and ready to go to be on air at a given time. I wanted to quickly walk you through kind of a day in the life of a producer at 10 News. So a day in the life kind of pre-COVID or during normal times, and this would work for any day part. Beginning of the day, you start with an editorial meeting. So you go through what's actually going on today, what's on our day book and our agenda. You hear different story pitches from our crew. And then at the very end of it, the reporters get assigned their stories for the day and then go out and start putting their stories together. For me as a producer, I then start putting different reporter stories that are assigned to me, to my show, in the show. You basically start filling the show. You start gathering content, whether it be local or national news of the day. You can start assigning scripts to writers. You start writing yourself. You think of your production value elements and kind of put together the whole puzzle, if you will. Then throughout the day, you get different updates from reporters on their stories. You go through their scripts for approval. And then, of course, everything will change once breaking news happens, and you have to pivot and adjust your show accordingly. But towards the end of the day, that's when your show time is. And excuse me, you're responsible for what's called boothing the show, which means just keeping it on time and also giving cues to reporters in the field, telling them when they're going to be on camera. And you also give weather cues for the meteorologists or weather anchors to make sure that everybody stays on time. So basically during showtime, the producer is the one kind of driving the bus and making sure that you stay on the road and you get where you're going safely. Okay, so during current times, I would say the majority of us are pretty much working from home or working remotely in some capacity. I'd say about 95% of us are remarkably doing our jobs from home, which I don't think any of us thought were possible a year ago. So that's been pretty incredible, and we have an awesome team of engineers who really made that happen. So our main lines of communication doing this job remotely are on Microsoft Teams or Zoom, like we are on now. We use both of those for editorial meetings, like I mentioned to you, and that's our main line of communication with everybody in the newsroom, is jumping onto those two platforms. So some of our anchors are still at home or they're in studio, depending on the day. Our weather folks call in from either Skype or Zoom to be part of the show. And then the majority of the producers, like myself, are also at home. I actually only go into work to the actual station 1 or 2 days a week. And there's one person there at all times just for safety measures in case, someone's setup at home goes down. So on the weekends, that is my job. So just to give you kind of a contrast here, on the left is my work from home setup. And then on the right, that is my desk actually at work at the station. So these are the two different environments that I'm working with right now during this time. And I wanted to leave you all with just some words of wisdom, things that I wish that I had known maybe at your ages, sitting where you are, that I definitely learned in my first job. And then even now, I would say, don't forget that you are much stronger than you think. Always, always, always believe in yourself. I know that might sound cheesy, but it's very true, especially once you're navigating college or even the post-grad life. A lot of changes happen, and just remember who you are and stick true to who you are at the core. I will say, definitely take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way, whether it's right now in high school being part of the video production class or club that I understand that you have. Take advantage of that. Take advantage of all of your classes. Someone mentioned earlier, a digital journalism class. Throw yourself into that and take advantage of everything that you can that has to offer. That will help you so much as you pursue different careers. And with that, also ask questions, be curious, learn, don't ever be afraid to ask or feel like you're bothering someone. You're not. And a lot of times people seem busier than they actually are. So don't be afraid to ask, learn. And of course, these are two things I think are super important, and they sound very, but they've gotten me a long way. Simply work hard and be kind. People with respect and you care, because they'll reciprocate that back to you. And then lastly, pay it forward. So you'll encounter folks in maybe in your time now in school or in your early career stages that really help you in some way as far as where you want to go, take you under their wing, maybe who eventually becomes your mentor, that somebody there for you. Make sure that you can have a chance to be that person for someone else down the line, because we all need help. We're all in this journey together. And I think that's so important. That's something that I've been trying to do now that I'm a few years into my career. So I just definitely encourage you all to do that one day when you're able to do that. I quickly wanted to share with you a quick clip from this special that I got to produce, I guess 2 years ago now. This was the very beginning, it's short, of our segment or our special called Positively San Diego, just to show you one of the more fun things that I get to do with my job. So here goes.
We cover the news you need to know, but more. It's not just about what's wrong, but what's right.
The kindness in people's hearts, never for granted.
Tonight, we are highlighting the people, the connections.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yep.
And the stories that bind us together.
Just wait and be patient, because anything is possible.
A true reflection of life in America's finest city.
Thank you for finding some lightness through our darkest time.
Good people making things better in our community. That's Positively San Diego.
And now, Positively San Diego, an ABC 10 News special.
Welcome to our ABC 10 News special, Positively San Diego. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. Too often the news focuses on just the problems, but at 10 News, we also focus on those solutions.
The uplifting stories that showcase the best of San Diego. Stories such as a blind man sailing across the Pacific Ocean.
Or therapy dogs helping people heal after their own tragedies. And a 3-year-old boy who earned a spot with the San Diego Fire.
Okay, so I'm going to stop talking now. That is my gist, and I would love to take time to answer any and all of your questions. Just wanted to share with you that piece that I got to work on. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Well, thank you so much, and we're going to see what we've got here in the chat. That's usually the easiest way for them to ask questions. So the first one I have from Melody is, what are the skills needed for this job? So what's some of the skills you would highlight which are key to success?
Sure, great question. I would say one of the skills that you need is definitely to have strong writing skills. That's probably one of the biggest things that we all do, even if you're not a person working behind the scenes. Reporters and anchors also need to have really strong writing skills. Writing can also be called storytelling skills. That's probably the number one skill that I would say is one of the most needed. I would also just say the ability to communicate well and to work with a team and work with a lot of different people, different personalities is also key, because this job is so much, is definitely teamwork oriented. You can't do anything by yourself in this job. So I would say writing, good communication, and strong teamwork skills.
Another question we have is, what do you think about false news spreading misinformation?
This is also a good question. So I will say over the past few years or so, that has definitely made our jobs both harder and more important. And I think that a lot of times people might see something on a particular news outlet and then that's false, and then blame media across the board for that. And so we all kind of get lumped into the mix of allegedly having false news, fake news, which I don't even like that phrase, but it has made our jobs harder. But I will say it's also made us kind of reevaluate how we do our jobs and put a greater importance on it. And we, especially over the past, I don't know, couple of years or so, we've just definitely made more of an effort to really make sure that our stories are incredibly balanced, that we're triple checking all of our sources, and just sticking true to who we are as a news organization, and letting the work speak for itself.
Other questions we have here. Alexander wants to know what kind of education does he need to get into television production? And I guess that's going to vary per thing, but I think he's looking for what kind of clusters of degrees or certifications he would need depending upon his role.
Yeah, so there's all different kinds. For me specifically, I did broadcast journalism, which was kind of all encompassing as far as whether or not you wanted to be on air or you wanted to be behind the scenes, because you really did it all and just chose a different focus based on what your end goal was. There are a lot of different kinds of majors or different programs. So there are some that are more geared towards, like at my school, for example, there's even a specific editing major. There's an audio major. So you could really get a lot more specific like that if you wanted to. But there are more broad video production programs, for example. Or if you don't do a specific major, you could do something like communications, for example. That's also one that I know a few folks have actually done. Or you can do something sports related. There are really a lot of different kinds. It just depends on maybe, I don't know if I'm asking more so about majors in school or just different programs in general. But there are a lot of different kinds. So it would just be a matter of what different colleges or universities have to offer.
Grady asks, is sports reporting easier than actual news? Well, I think the sports people
Question
might take
also
offense to that one because they've been.
questions. I will say, I think if you asked me this question a couple of years ago before I had actually gotten started in the industry, I would say, yes, it is easier. But knowing what the sports team does, I would say no, it's not. They have breaking news too. When Fernando Tatis Jr. signed his multi-million-dollar contract, that was a big deal. We had to get our sports folks on that very quickly. So no, I wouldn't say that it's any easier than actual news. It's a different kind of news. So their workflow might be a little bit different, or it might seem like a little bit more streamlined and things don't change as quickly. But they're often working around the clock. They could be working late into the night because a game was still going on. It went into OT. So no, is the short answer.
Okay, our next question up is going to be, Melody asks, I have only seen young women as anchors. Does it come to a certain age where they won't want you to be on anymore regarding your age type of thing? So is there ageism amongst the TV personalities? That's a question.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up too. I will say, I feel like this might have definitely been pretty commonplace about 10, 20 years ago. I think there's been such a huge shift in terms of ageism and just tolerance across the board. So I don't think that this is necessarily true in modern times, which is a huge plus for women in this field. I will say, I'm just rereading your question over here in the chat. I have to say, I work with some awesome women who are older, maybe in their 50s, who are just, the face of the station. They are the news veterans in town. So for them, age is not a problem, which is awesome. They have so much to offer too, so much insight, so much to teach the younger folks who are just getting into the industry, which is pretty amazing. And I work closely with one of our female anchors, Kimberly Hunt, actually, who you just saw in that piece that I played for you. And she's incredible as far as paying it forward, like I mentioned, and really helping teach the people that she works with. So in my opinion, I would say no.
Okay, more questions. You can either come off the mic or just throw them in the chat. I know chat's probably easier. But while we have her here, Panther Primetime, let's see some questions. If you're a budding journalist, you should have lots of questions, you would think.
I have a question just about the internships. Was that something that kind of was streamlined for you as you were going through that college experience? And then you were kind of in the know at that. What I mean is you had perhaps connections to get to those internships, because I think that is such an important. Would there be something available for a student, just as they're entering college, or is that something? How do you get into that internship world?
That's a great question. So let me think. I think my first one that I got was the second semester of sophomore year. And that was one that I knew about from other classmates of mine who had done it previously. It was different from the one that I had presented to you all earlier. But that was more of a word of mouth kind of a thing. And then honestly, for me, there was no secret or easy way into the door as far as getting an internship. Like for Nightly News, for example, people ask me all the time, how did you get it? Did you know somebody, blah, blah, blah. I just applied online, and for whatever reason, they liked me. I just followed the process. And from there, I will say getting that one helped me get the next one, because somebody up there knew somebody down here in San Diego who I got another local station internship with. So there wasn't necessarily an easy way in. It was just a matter of doing the work myself and finding opportunities, and also just kind of networking with different professors or classmates to see, okay, what are you doing? What are you looking into? And what kind of internships are you getting? Or, hey, professor, do you know anybody in this area that might be able to talk to me? So Actually, one of my professors helped me get a summer gig with Fox Sports San Diego. He knew somebody. So that actually kind of contradicts what I said earlier, but that was the only one. But I just kind of went through the general process like everybody else, and that helped me move forward.
Okay, guys, any other questions? I have one kind of general one is net going forward. I mean, right now, most of the students aren't going to be entering the industry tomorrow. You know, they may be entering the industry 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 6 years from now. How do you see news evolving, you know, in terms of roles and the whole structure? I mean, what kind of industry do you think they're going to be walking into in the future, and what kind of skills or preparation can they do now to try to meet that future?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I would say I definitely think broadcast is always going to be kind of the number one. So watching on, you know, your television or watching on your phone or your computer. There's definitely been a strong shift towards streaming platforms. A lot of different networks now, for example, have a whole other team strictly dedicated to just, you know, putting the news on your phone, and having a totally separate entity that's just for that you wouldn't get on TV or on cable, for example. So that's something to keep in mind, that there might be more avenues there to break into the industry. I know that even locally, we are kind of shifting to that a little bit as well. So I definitely see kind of the more digital platforms, streaming services as one of the big areas in the future of the industry, because we're seeing it now, and it's been a quick transition, and a lot more different local stations and networks are jumping onto that bandwagon and having more individualized coverage. We try to push different things that you wouldn't see on TV to go watch on our digital platforms, for example. So it's also just something to watch, because, you know, we don't even know how it's going to change in a couple of years.
Another question we had was, what are some entry-level positions in broadcasting?
Great question. So for me, as the producing side, an entry-level position would definitely be an associate producer. So you're basically a writer for the different newscasts. As far as, are there any other kinds, or you're interested in more of on air or strictly behind the scenes? There's different ways you can go depending on kind of what you're thinking that you might want to do. So for being on air, for example, you might start out in what's called a small market, which is basically a smaller city like Eugene, Oregon, which I shared with you. And that's where you get your, you get your hands dirty on reporting for the very first time in a small city, where you are able to make a lot of different mistakes and really hone your craft there before moving on to a larger market like San Diego. So some folks who want to be on air, you might be moving around the country a little bit, ping-ponging to different markets as you go. It's not the only way to get to a larger market. You can, start out here at a different job and then work your way up. I will say that it is definitely harder to do, because you might not have reporter experience right off the bat that you would have gotten in a small market. But as far as producing goes, I would definitely say an associate producer or some kind of writing position is probably the number one entry-level position for this job.
I think the other question I have is, what is the thing that you really love about the position you have today? What makes you get up every day and go, yeah, I am so glad I am here?
Honestly, it's so fun being a San Diego native. I love the fact that I get to kind of represent, my hometown every day and be the one telling you, hey, this is what's going on in our community, the good, the bad, and everything in between. For me, that's so special. I call it both a privilege and a responsibility to do what I do. So this is huge for me, just to be in my hometown and to get to do this every day is a big deal. To be part of the team that is really conveying such important information to you, especially during a time like we're in now, our jobs have never been more important. So that's something that I love getting to do.
Ms. Swenson, Ms. Campbell, do you have any other questions today? And Melody has one last question. She has got a ton of extra credit points here for doing great questions today. You took Spanish in college. Do you speak it fluently? She's asking.
Yes, I do. Yes, it is. Yes, I do. My family is actually, my mom's family is Cuban. So yes, I don't look like I might be Latin American, but I am. I will say it has definitely come in handy, especially working in San Diego. I've been asked to do translating work, and it just helps. It's definitely an extra tool to keep in your back pocket.
Terrific. Well, we're going to run out of time, like all new segments do, correct? So, but thank you so much for coming today. This has been, I've learned a ton. So I know I have, and I know the students have as well. And I hope the Panther Primetime students and our future Panther Primetime students got a lot out of this today. And I know we're going to be talking to Steve Atkinson next week.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, he's going to be here as well. So if students are here for this one, you'll want to sign up for the other one that's coming too, and that'll give you another perspective on the news as well, and getting into broadcasting. So thank you very much. I hope everybody has a great day. And I did record this in case anybody wasn't able to make it. They can come back and refer to this off of the College and Career site.
Thank you all. Great questions. Thank you so much for having me. This has been fantastic. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Take
very
care.
much.
Thank you.